hosted by O Digital. And this is the opening event of the third week of the O Digital Weeks campaign, the Digital Competence Framework 2.2 webinar. And this is really one of the very first opportunities to present the recent update of the DigComp framework, which was also supported by the DigComp community of practice. And before we start, I would like to just say a few words about O Digital Weeks and our content. So basically, O Digital Weeks campaign is one of the major pan-European awareness-raising campaigns on digital skills for inclusion and empowerment. It's been organized by O Digital, our network and partners, and it's running since 2010. And every year we have more than 100,000 people. So over these 14 years, 1.4 million people to get online for the first time or enhance their digital skills, learn about digital transformation, really exploiting the full potential of digital transformation. And every year, the campaign brings over 100,000 participants from more than 20 countries in exciting online and offline events and training courses tackling digital transformation. And the campaign takes place, in the virtual place, online, but a lot of things happen offline at the grassroots level in digital competence centers, libraries, community centers, schools, and other venues across Europe. And it involves international and national partners and participating organizations from different European countries. And the motto of our O Digital Weeks 2022 campaign is enhance your digital skills. This is our call to action for all Europeans to take an active part to shape for a better future. And you can join us by organizing an event, a training activity on digital competencies, and you can put your event on the map of the O Digital Weeks EU website. And we started the campaign 2 weeks ago on the 14th of March with the lunch event, and it was opened by EU Commissioner Maria Gabriel, who said that we are really at the turning point of development of digital skills, and we need the support of all education and training stakeholders. And she expressed counting on us to carry on bringing this vision forwards. The O Digital Weeks campaign is supported by the European Commission and Huawei, Microsoft, and Certiport, and it's also supported by strategic partners, other international organizations which are supporting in the dissemination and exploitation of the campaign. And the 5 weeks of campaign is focusing on specific topics. Every week we are targeting a different topic, and this week is dedicated to the promotion of the use of the Digital Competence Framework. And we have already put together an agenda for this week, including today's event on the update of the DigComp framework. And we have, as you can see on the slide, several other webinars or small events organized during this week related to the use of the DigComp framework in different projects. For instance, on the 30th of March, we have also invited a DigComp COP member, the Hungarian DigComp system, to present their initiatives or projects implementing the DigComp framework in the Hungarian Digital Success Program. And we have 2 more weeks to go. Yeah, sorry, this is the last slide. So we have 2 weeks to go. The next week will be focused on achieving cybersecurity and safer internet, and a number of events organized around this topic. And the week 5, the last week of the campaign, we'll be focusing on improving STEM and STEAM skills for society, and very importantly, encouraging women's and girls' participation in STEM studies and careers. And now I would like to thank our presenters today. I would like to introduce them. First of all, Anna Carrero, Deputy Head of Unit from DG Employment, and then Dr. Riina Vuorikari, Research Fellow from DG JRC, the Joint Research Center, will introduce the updated DigComp framework. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I would like, first of all, give the floor to Anna. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks a lot for the warm welcome. This is my first all digital weeks. So very interesting, the agenda and the objectives. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. So good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I will be basically setting the scene with the main policy context, and then give the floor to Riina, who will explain this update in depth. As you know, DG Employment has been supporting the Joint Research Center in this work, but they are in the lead, let's say. So I think by now everybody is aware that the digital transition will have a marked impact on the labor market and on skills. Over 90% of the jobs already require some level of digital skills, be it collaborative economy, robotization, AI services, and the pandemic has accelerated this trend in all sectors. So as a result, some jobs will disappear, some tasks of jobs will change, but also the transition will also bring new job opportunities. However, to seize these opportunities, it is imperative that all workers and learners are equipped with the necessary skills. So laid-off workers will need to gain new skills to continue working in different occupations or sectors, and others will need to learn how to incorporate and make the most of digital technologies. And in this context, we are facing immense challenges. We are already facing labor shortages and unfilled vacancies in Europe. And in 2019, more than a third of the EU population still had an insufficient level of digital skills. And for the past 5 years, the increase rate has been very slow. That's why we also need to be very ambitious. In terms of ICT specialists employed, we only have 7.8 million now, and only 1 out of 6 are women. And as regards young people, they do not naturally become digitally competent just because they are born in a digital world. When 8th graders were last tested, we found out that 1/3 of them did not reach the basic digital skills threshold. So these challenges call for new types of training and education and for new initiatives. So we need to do more together. And that's why at EU level, we have set ourselves very ambitious targets in terms of digital skills. This is not new for you. We aim at 80% of adults having at least basic digital skills in 2030, as per the European Pillar of Social Rights Action Plan and the Digital Compass. In addition, we aim at 20 million ICT professionals employed by 2030 with a balanced representation between men and women, and this complemented by other targets for young people to achieve the European education area. In parallel, and to complement this, we also need to focus on leaving no one behind in the digital transition. We need to ensure that education and training provide equal opportunities for all, and that's why we also need to pay attention to children in vulnerable situations, low-skilled adults, and people with disabilities, among other disadvantaged groups. So this situation calls for political will and commitment to invest more on digital, to increase the political ambitions, and that is why the Commission has started a structured dialogue on digital education and skills that will take place during 2022, and the aim is to boost political visibility and encourage member states to be ambitious to reach these targets. And we will be holding bilateral and collective meetings with member states and other stakeholders to this purpose in a tailored manner. What we want is that they all work in a whole of government approach with an integrated perspective and coordinated at all levels. So education and training systems provide the digital skills that young people need from a very early age, and public and private stakeholders work together to upskill and reskill the workforce to meet these targets. So in this context, and beyond these general objectives, the skills agenda and the digital education action plan set concrete measures to help achieving the targets, including the present update of the DigComp, which is action number 8 of the digital education action plan. But why? What's the role of the Digital Competence Framework? So we believe it can play a central role in achieving our objectives. It has already provided a common understanding across the EU of what digital competences are, and therefore provided a basis for framing digital skills policy. Many member states, and regions in Europe have used it already to frame digital skills policy for curricula development and for assessment of digital competences in an education or labor market context. And even beyond the EU, organizations like UNESCO are using DigComp also in other countries. But why do we need an update now? Because a lot has happened since it was last updated in 2016, emerging technologies like AI, datafication, or in terms of phenomena like misinformation and disinformation. And the present update takes account of knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed by the citizens to face these developments. It also takes account of the green and sustainability aspects that interact with the digital technologies. And I think also it's important to mention that the process of the JRC to prepare this update took into consideration the consultation of a very broad number of stakeholders, including through the community of practice that was set up for this purpose. There is already high awareness of DigComp. We were saying that many countries are already using it, but we think that we need to do more so it becomes a reference and has broad acceptance. And this will be particularly important to also develop other actions that we have set ourselves to in the Digital Education Action Plan, like the European Digital Skills Certificate. So it's successfully implemented. And that is why last week, with this in mind, it was presented this new update in the Digital Stakeholders Forum. And we hope that the presentation today also contributes to the wide dissemination of this tool. So I can only encourage education and training providers, public employment services, and other public institutions to use and check out this practical tool and integrate it in their processes of setting their digital skills policies for assessment, adaptation of curricula, validation, and so on. And now Riina will walk you through the details of this update. And yes, as Peter was saying, feel free to already post your questions in the chat because we will be holding a Q&A session after her presentation. Thank you, Riina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you for everybody being here. It is a really great day. And as I was already introduced, my name is Riina Vuorikari. I'm the lead investigator for the DigComp 2.2 update. Importantly, many of you have seen this scene already. This was when we started, this is the timeline of work when we started about a year and 3 months ago, actually. And I'm so glad that we are today here at the end. We are at the publication event that took place last week, and today we are really starting to discuss about the rollout and about the use. And so it was already mentioned that DigComp is part of, the update is really part of this open process of co-creation. And it cannot be more important for me to emphasize that thank you for everybody who was involved in it. We have a big acknowledgement section at the part of the publication, and there we have outlined more than 100 names of people who contributed. Importantly, we have people who contributed as working group leads, and those people took an extra effort to work in certain parts of the process to collate information and work with us then when we started actually creating these statements. So really warm thanks for everybody, and especially thanks for the leads. Some of you are here today, I know, so please make sure you have your camera on, and so that people can see also faces of those who participated. I saw Achilles Cameas there, I saw Anicia Trianad there, who was working on the safety and well-being. There's Luis Sanchez there, accessibility. And I saw Giorgio Evangelinos, who's also part of the AI systems working group. So thanks for being here today, and especially thanks for the co-authors. Stefano Klutzer is there, Ipuni, and Wayne Holmes. So now I would just like to ask you to join me for a little upload for everybody being involved. So that's for all of us. Thank you. Here for the rest of the session, I will walk you through the update, and we will be talking about different parts. And I hope that we will have enough time for questions and answers. There will be exactly the chat. You can already write down your questions now, and then at the end, we will also open the microphones for everybody else. Oh, the never-ending question. What does it really mean to be digitally competent today? We know that in Europe, we have the council recommendation, the DigComp definition actually comes from that: critical, confident, critical, responsible use of engagement with digital technologies for learning at work and for participation in society. Importantly, competence is composed of 3 different elements: skills, knowing how to do something; knowledge, also the background, maybe more theoretical knowledge; and the attitude. This is the open, critical attitude towards new technologies, for example. As many of you know, this is one part of the DigComp framework defines exactly examples of these 3 elements, and it had not been updated. So importantly, this is really the part of the update that we are doing today. And as was already mentioned by my colleagues, this is part of the Digital Education Action Plan. So in a nutshell, this is what you need to remember. The DigComp update gives 250 examples of knowledge, skills, and attitude. And this is to really help education and training providers to update their DigComp curriculum, the course material, and so on, so that they can face today's challenges. The 21 DigComp competencies that are here on the right-hand side, they all remain the same. So you can still keep the same training content or same, let's say, training syllabus that you have, but with this new knowledge, skills, and attitude items, you can go ahead and update specific parts where you see that they are relevant for your content and training. The key themes, already a few of them were mentioned, but let me just quickly go through again. Fact-checking online content and its sources. And this is the key part of media education and information literacy. And here, of course, with fake news, deep fakes, and so on, this has become really an important part for citizens to understand better, to have knowledge, and to have the skills and right attitude to do something about it. Remote working, COVID, gave a huge new context for digital competencies, for digital competence to be used actually as part of your work, and nowadays more and more also at the hybrid work context. In our thinking and in our update, digital accessibility has a big part. We have examples that focus on digital accessibility, but also one part of the report is made accessible for screen readers. I come back to that a little bit later. Green and sustainability aspects when we're interacting with digital technologies become important. We're talking in the EU, we're talking about the green transition, digital transition, green digital transition, and here thinking about the consequences of our actions become important. Well-being and safety especially, we talk a lot about the personal data that is being generated by new technologies that we use nowadays, but also on different parts of the process. How when I'm using AI-based systems that record my voice, for example, how is my safety and privacy being taken care of? So those are the new aspects. And here I would say the citizens interacting with AI systems, that is really at the core of those safety and personal and also well-being questions. So let me just go ahead and give you some really practical examples. Here already you see the cover, probably you have already downloaded it too. And here is the main sort of a layout. When you go to the part of the integrated framework, this is section 2. Our idea was really that with the one page, 2 pages open, you can see the whole framework with all its dimensions. Here on the very left side, you can see the area, and each area has its own color. And that color is also used for the competence and competence descriptor here underneath. So here you can quickly look what is the competence descriptor, and next to it you see the proficiency levels. This is the dimension 3, and the proficiency levels, different shades are here used to really outline. So you can see from the easiest to the higher level of the competence. Dimension 4, this is our new area. And here you can see the little icons. We have a book, for example, for knowledge examples, bicycle for skills, and heart for attitudes. And here we have the level, the use cases, and these are carry on from the previous 2.1 update. So you can see how they are explained here, and here's the explained how they are connected to the proficiency levels. Importantly, you will see more, but I highlight here already the examples that focus on citizens using AI systems are marked with AI, remote work with the RW, and digital accessibility with the DA. So let's go ahead and really look at the main display. With the little red dot up on the top, you see that this is the new part of the update. As you know, the other things, that nothing with the descriptors, nothing with the areas, nothing with the proficiency levels have changed. So the dimension 4 is really at our focus. So what these examples are and what they are not about. For each of the competence, we came up with a list of about 10 to 15 statements per competence, and they illustrate these new themes that were already mentioned. There can be more, let's say, knowledge statements in one and more skills statements in another competence. It was never meant to be, let's say, exact the same number of examples per competence. Why is this? It is because some competencies are more knowledge heavy and other competencies are more skills focused. So that's why we thought that there's no need to be standardized in this, but let's see what are the needs that come up. So these are examples, as the name example says. So what is important to understand that this is not an exhaustive list of what the competence itself entails. These are just examples of it, and especially new examples. So these are focusing on things that were not defined earlier, that have emerged since. So what we meant with the old descriptors, or let's say in the update 2.0, they are still valid descriptors. Another important thing is that examples are not on proficiency levels. So by looking at the examples, you cannot, let's say, assess somebody's proficiency levels. Or you cannot imagine that this example should be at level 3 or should be at level 2. Eventually, you might be able to do that kind of work as part of your own course content, your own defined learning outcomes, and say where these examples will belong there, if that's your goal. But as such, the examples are not on proficiency levels. And as I already said, this will be probably most useful for the curriculum planning and for updating your course syllabus. This was always much demanded. So we are really excited to have this out. In practical terms, so here the knowledge, skills, and attitude are already also defined as they are defined in the key competencies, the Council recommendation for key competencies for lifelong learning. And here you can see that knowledge examples, we use this certain way of starting the statement: aware of, knows about, understands that. In skills examples, it focuses on knowing how to do something, able to do, can do something, searches. So there we might start with the verb right away. And attitudes, which are knowledgeably pretty hard to define, we have tried more this idea like open to doing something, curious about, critical. How are you critical? You weigh the benefits and risks. So those are the key sort of terms that you see that we have used throughout. And here I will show you a few examples. We are looking at information and data literacy. We're looking at the competence 1.2, evaluating data, information, and digital content. Here I have highlighted one of the examples, number 21, aware that AI algorithms might not be configured to provide only the information that the user wants. They might also embody a commercial or political message. This is to encourage users to stay on the site, to watch or buy something particular, to share specific opinions. This can also have negative consequences. For example, reproducing stereotypes, sharing misinformation. So here you can see an example how we have constructed these statements for knowledge. Skill, on the other hand, in this area of evaluating data, information, and digital content would be something like knows how to analyze and critically evaluate search results and social media activities streams to identify their origin, to distinguish fact reporting from opinion, and to determine whether outputs are truthful or have other limitations. They might be economic, political, or religious interests that are put forward. So here you see a knowledge example already from the, skills example already from the knowledge, aware that at the background of information that you are fed on the internet, there are algorithms, and here you see that you should have these skills in order to evaluate what are truthful or what are opinions and what are true messages. As an example of attitude, we have here inclined to ask critical questions in order to evaluate the quality of online information and concerned about purposes behind spreading or amplifying disinformation. We all see this information, and here it is exactly about the attitude. Are you inclined to ask these questions? Are you concerned for the purposes? So these are the focus points that we hope help training providers and curriculum developers to pinpoint these new important aspects. Let me give another example, and this is related to more the idea that all key competencies, all 8 of them, are interrelated in a way or another, and there are also hooks between them. So the other parts of the report, apart from that integrated framework, we have also a consolidated resource section. And here we introduce the self-reflection tool and self-assessment tools that are around, either directly and all 100% based on DigComp, like DigComp SAT self-assessment tool, or other implementations like those on part of the CV online tools. We have implementation guides where you can find case studies of how other people have used DigComp in different contexts. It might be education, or it might be labor context, so on. There's also a list of translations that are available. And here we have collected either national or regional translations of a whole report. Might be that only the framework has been translated. But importantly, there's also an official translation from ESCO vocabulary that uses DigComp. And that this is also a machine readable output of the DigComp framework. So that's interesting for those who are developing digital learning tools, for example. So I mentioned the other frameworks. Here you see the same key competence sort of a cycle, and you see that, for example, here at the European Commission by JRC, we have also created another framework called LifeComp. This is the competence pair of personal, social, and learning to learn. We have, in the same way as in DigComp, we have defined the competence model, the reference model, and there's more information about it. So we have tried to make links between DigComp examples and LifeComp, and they are outlined in a very small note, but they are outlined there in any case. So this could be also interesting when you are developing your course content or syllabus, to look at the connections between DigComp and LifeComp, DigComp and EntreComp, or DigComp and maybe, you know, the civic, the competencies for democratic culture, where there's a little bit more about the civic participation, for example. So these are outlined, and we hope that they are also useful in the future. Another important part, of course, of the report, at the annex, we have sort of a section that gives you the methodology underlying the DigComp framework, how it has been developed, how was the process from the very first 1.0 to today's version. So that's also available at the report. Other parts of the report, which are worth mentioning and discussing here. This is a specific appendix in the annex. And this one focuses on citizens interacting with AI systems. As already was mentioned by my colleague Anna, this part was really also the heart of the demand by the Digital Education Action Plan. So here, the working group who was working on data literacy, AI systems, on Internet of Things, on personal data, they were focusing on first defining what would be the requirements for citizens interacting with AI systems. And here really the focus is on this interaction with AI systems. It became very quickly understood that it's not about citizens knowing about AI. They don't necessarily need to know about whether it's machine learning or rule-based system that they are using, but they have to be aware of what these AI systems do and what they don't do, and they should understand what are the benefits and limitations and challenges of these systems, what comes to them interacting with these systems. As a skill, exactly that you could interact, you could give feedback to these systems because you know that they learn from your previous behavior, and you can be sort of an end user, confident and safe end user. Confident and safe also in terms that you know how to configure or adapt some of these systems that might be within an application of your mobile phone by looking what kind of data they are collecting about you and your actions and with whom they are sharing this data. Again, one of the requirements in attitudes was this idea of human agency and control, that you as a user, you know that these are suggestions. Maybe you are looking at the movies or scrolling down an e-commerce website. You get suggestions by this or watch this movie. Okay, these are suggestions. Do I really want to do that? You take the action and decision as an end user. Critical yet open attitude. We don't want to be just embracing everything that is given to us by these systems, because again, like we saw, there might be other interests by the developers of the system. So we are aware of that and we take the critical look. And ethical considerations of usage. And this is nowadays, you know, let's say e-commerce, you have the food deliveries, you're like thinking also like, are the food delivery people paid properly, or does it make sense for me to order it and have it delivered at home? Because there's the footprint, the carbon footprint might be bigger that way and so on. So those are the ethical and green suggestions that we are saying that these would be helpful for citizens to consider. So this extra appendix on citizens interacting with AI systems, it has a different structure than the, let's say, in the integrated framework. In the integrated framework, you see the DigComp competence, so 1.2, you know, evaluating content. And then you see the relevant examples of knowledge, skills, and attitude. Here, we take a different look into it. So we have different structures. So here we a little bit drawing what the requirements were that I was just explaining to you. We're thinking, what are the AI systems? What do they do? What do they not do? How do they work? When interacting with AI systems, what do you have to keep in mind as a citizen? What are the challenges and ethics of AI in general? And attitudes regarding human agency and control that I already mentioned. And importantly, in this appendix, you have much more examples than you have actually as part of the integrated framework. Here in this appendix, you find about 73 examples, and about half of them are part of the integrated frameworks. And they are these red dots here. And the other ones are not part of the framework. Why? Because when we did the public validation, we had actually almost all of these examples and a little bit more of AI examples there. And some of the feedback that we got was like, whoa, you're very heavily focused on AI systems. There are other things that we should keep an eye on, and we should not overload, let's say, the new DigComp 2.2 by this AI aspect. So that's why we decided, like, we'll keep it reduced in the part of the official framework. And here, since the work was already done by experts, they were very well received. It makes sense to have this new other appendix. And here, interestingly, after each of the statement, you can see in which competence they are linked to. So in case you want to give a little bit more about information to your training targets about AI and interacting with AI, this is some inspiration for you. However, I have to say, like, we were focusing on DigComp competencies only. To learn about AI, there's much more. But since DigComp is always interested in citizens or you interacting with systems, there's less about knowledge about internet as such, or knowledge about AI. So that part is not there. Another second appendix is on remote working examples. And same thing here, there was a working group who was working on these examples. There were longer lists going to the public validation, and part of them were filtered thanks to the feedback that we got in the public validation, and some of them have been integrated in the DigComp framework, and others are here for inspiration. They really focus more on this remote working context, also about managing tasks, work, people. So these are also inspirational. There will be more about also coming on some of the working groups. They might be still in the process of gathering all the information and publishing it. And we are expecting, hopefully, to have some other publication also on these remote working examples. Let me now go and show the last part of the examples that I wanted to focus on. And this is on digital accessibility. And today, digital accessibility has become a big priority, not only because it is, of course, a European Union directive, but also because we want to be more inclusive in society. And we have made the decision that the DigComp framework itself should be also available in a format that it's accessible through screen reader. So this is the part in Annex 4 that is accessible for screen reader. And as you can see, it has a little bit different look and feel, because for the screen reader, you cannot use exactly the same graphical cues like we were using for the grades or shades of color for proficiency levels, for example. So here the proficiency levels are very clearly outlined. And we think that this is not only good for screen readers, but also for some of you, you might want to quickly take a look. You might want to copy paste it to some other document and so on. So it's here available. So what does it mean to be digitally competent today? I hope that the new DigComp update, DigComp 2.2, will help you define and get by what is digital competence today. So it's accessible for a download. And here you have the links and the QR code. So here we can actually start. I expect that there might be some questions, some comments from the audience. So I'll end here, and we'll take a little bit more chatty approach. I'll stop sharing the screen. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Then, hi, Riina. I captured a few questions that were written in the chat.
Perfect.
Can I turn them to you? Okay, the first one is about whether Gema Parado asked whether DigComp 2.2 will be translated into EU languages soon. And so what about the translation? And in fact, there was another question from someone from Georgia who asked whether you need a license or an authorization by JRC to translate. And I already answered to that one that no, everyone is free to do the translation, but please read the suggestions we put in the DigComp into Action report based on the Slovenian experience about how they approached the translation of the DigComp report, which was not so linear and easy process. But exactly, the question about will it be translated into EU languages soon?
Yep. So here, the DigComp framework, we have taken this approach that it is really the user communities to make the translations. We have had some mediocre success using our own services. And why this is so hard for non-experts to do a translation of something like Digital Competence Framework is because you already might be using certain terminology in your own country, and you might already have processes ongoing. So you want to link the current translation into yours. So we're not planning to translate it, but we are supporting the translation in terms of making a Word file available of the text that is in this document. And we are also making available the InDesign file, so the graphical file. So in case you want to enter your own translation into the same look and feel, it will be available for you. As was mentioned, the European Commission uses open license, and there it's enough that you mention the origin of the source. And for translation, we have a few things, and we are putting, those are already on our website at the support section, but we are also making it available together with the files, translation files, so that you know exactly what you can do and what you cannot do. And as Stefano already mentioned, this idea of we have one case study on translation and how people went around about it in this community to discuss actually the terms, to make sure that everybody agrees and so on. So this process is one example, one good example. Also, why? Because we hope that there will not be like 5 different translations in one bigger country, let's take Italy or Spain, you know, but that the community also would come together to work on that together. So that's the approach with DigComp. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, another question, and maybe I will start answering to it and then let you continue. It says, is there a wiki style space where people can add more examples of knowledge, skills, and attitude? This was asked by Raquel Coelho. And I would say, Raquel, that we have been talking about this idea because also because we already produced many examples during the process, the update process, which were eventually discarded because we couldn't make it too long, the list of examples. But so we have already some examples which have been produced during the process, and definitely there can be plenty of other examples that might be useful. So we are, this is something that we may discuss if you're interested in the DigComp COP, in the sense that that's exactly the place where we could carry on this kind of activity. And what I would say is that, of course, we would have to set up a tool that supports this process, but then also we should probably agree on some kind of, let's say, quality management aspects, because the risk is to have lots of people putting into the system anything. And then the problem is that you end up having something that you don't know how valuable it is because the quality is uncertain. So I think there is both an aspect of the tool that supports it and the rules to produce this. But definitely that's something interesting. And if you're interested and willing also to contribute, please, if you're not already in the COP, join it, and we can definitely discuss it. And then,
can I add a question there that kind of follows onto what you were just saying? So thank you very much for your answer. And I was thinking also with this idea of wiki, in terms of benchmarking, for people that are writing, creating resources and content, just ensuring that what is intermediate and what is advanced. I know it's not possible to be absolutely specific, but I'm just asking in terms of that, where can people find more guidance or contribute to it? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that's also like, there's 2 ways to go about that. One is being that we have some kind of expert group, right, like here, and you have a, let's say, number of experts who would say like, these 10, I will rank them by their difficulty or by their complexity of task, you know, in this way. And then when we have the convergence around experts, that's one way to go about it and to understand. And that would be exactly a good use for me. I would think that's a good use of like expert communities like this. And then you could also coach maybe the differences between countries, because if something is considered hard in one country, it's not necessarily that hard in another. We know from the Digital Skills Index that there are huge differences between European countries. And this is the important thing of the training, is that it has to be localized and targeted to your audience. Of course, the other way about it is the psychometric properties, but there, you know, the piloting and all this kind of work is it's a different nature. And then the community of practice would not necessarily be such a useful place, because you have to run the pilots following certain method. And that's what we had explained in the DigComp SAT report, for example. Let's see if there's another question.
Yes, there is. Okay, there are two. One is about from Dora Simonovic, who asked, is there a 3.0 revision on the horizon? And then Mads Dahl is asking, is the DigComp framework in any internal EU competition with other frameworks? Or is there an agreement on this great framework? Okay, both questions are interesting.
Very good. So there's definitely the challenge also within the European Commission to talk in one language about, was it then the digital skilling or digital competence, media literacy, fake news, all that. But I think now finally, after so many years of DigComp being around and the acceptance that it has gotten through different, let's say also political level, high level initiatives, we are able to work together also to give more importance for DigComp. As such, in competence, not really. Like there's the Competence Framework for ICT professionals, and this is the professionals, whereas we are about citizens. So those two are very complementary frameworks as such. Also, the media literacy framework by UNESCO that EU is often giving us an example and supporting also for media literacy. There are so many complementarities. We see them as two sides of the same coin. Teachers can use one to teach the other. So we are trying to also make this kind of message come across, so that both within the Commission and outside, there would be the one way to talk about it. At least the same language. And the same, we can use the reference framework also for referencing. In my country, these 11 out of 21 are important, whereas we leave out these other ones. So that's also a very good use of reference framework that we highlight in some practices. What was the second one? Do you want to say anything, Anna, about that? About the
The question was about the 3.0 revision on the horizon.
Yes. Yes, let me take my binoculars and see where they are. Of course, this is very important about the DigComp framework, that it keeps following its time, it keeps evolving. Digital competence, we used to talk about 3 months of internet year being 3 months and so on, but it's also for competence development. And that's why this is sort of an intermediary step. We are saying DigComp is still relevant as it is. We have these new examples that you can use. Remember, we use this kind of like a future-proof wording. We talk about digital technologies. 5 years ago, it was Web 2.0, and now it is the recommender systems. It's the AI algorithms that do things at the background. So that's one way. But eventually, I think we need to also check the whole 21 competencies and how does it fit the reality. And in a way, this exercise already helped us do that. We kind of saw that we can shoehorn these things still in to DigComp 2.0 model, but in the future, we will really have to have an eye on new competencies like the green transition that will bring new skills are needed from citizens. So how is that reflected? The whole citizenship idea, it's already in DigComp, but it might be very different in 3 to 5 years time. So I will imagine that there will be update coming then later on. And this was also, we discussed with the community in the beginning, and that we are taking input back in. And that's why we're also very interested in looking at the local adaptation and adoptions of the framework, like in Austria or in France, they have taken DigComp and added something, take something out, mixed things. So these are important sort of guidance, or the kind of like the signals of change for us that we take into account. Thanks.
Okay, there is Herbert Kubicek who raised his hand.
Yes, I have a problem in writing my question in the chat. That's why I want to take this opportunity. I'm working on elderly people, high ages, 80 years plus, and I wonder what kind of items are relevant for their participation in a digitalized work, and are there any recommendations for selecting those items relevant for this particular group, which is highly affected by a digital divide?
Absolutely, very welcome question, and thanks for being part. And you did exactly the right thing, you know, like we said, the questions can be asked in a chat, but that doesn't fit for you. So you raise your hand, can I talk? And this is, we offer many ways. And that's important when we talk about social inclusion in the future and keeping this digital divide as small as possible, is that even within digital or within any services, we think of how we can serve different target audiences and different groups, users, like the ones you mentioned. It's super important because it's just getting more, you know, we're getting more older people in Europe. As such, with this update, there was a discussion like, should we have a specific section or something, you know, highlighted for elderly people? However, it was looked that elderly people are citizens too, so they do have certain, you know, same needs as such for using technologies. But I think that some of the accessibility ones will help anybody. Like when we create videos, we put captions on videos so that those who have hearing problems, they can read, or vice versa. You know, if you have a reading problem, you can talk. And we have the new technologies like with the AI systems. Sometimes you can use voice commands, so you don't have to type your search question anymore, and so on. So those examples will become helpful for a group like yours, but we have not pointed them out. So that could be something that you could maybe take a critical look at our examples and see like what fits for elderly group of users, and take that forward. That would be interesting for us also to know. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think there is, Riina, maybe one last question, which is about programs. Gulnaz Bokuchava asked if we can provide exact program names, and she specified she's talking about training program in the field of improving the digital competence, where she can find links, and in particular, if we know of anything oriented towards e-government, mastering e-government systems. Now, I don't know, there are many programs around. I don't know, Riina, if you want to answer, but there is no exact answer to this. I mean, there are so many things happening around. You may want to look at the European what is digital skills platform. Yes, where there is a collection of training offers from all around Europe, which are available also in different languages.
Absolutely, and that's definitely something that is sort of work in progress, and Commission is looking a little bit more towards that, trying to link also the offer from member states to demand, like based on, let's say, interacting with government services and so on. But that's ongoing work, and probably the best is looking at your own country, so that because they focus on exactly the digital certificates that you need in your country to authenticate yourself, and so on. So that's also an important, maybe a good lead to start. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, since it's 3 o'clock, Victoria asked if we can have switch on whoever is waiting to do this.
Stefano, sorry for a moment. Before we do that, and I'm aware that it's 3:01, but I would like to give the floor for 1 minute to my colleague Norman Röner, who will be the co-moderator of the DigComp Community of Practice, to share some ideas how we would like to follow up after the presentation of the updated DigComp frameworks. Norman, if you please contribute.
Yeah, first of all, hi, I'm Norman Röner. I'm the policy officer at Digital, and as said, I'm going to be a co-moderator of the Digital Competence Community of Practice. Thank you to all the speakers. But also thank you to all the questions that have been asked. These are very great questions, and we're looking forward to answering them coming down the line. And just because the update to version 2.2 is now done as much as it is, it doesn't mean that the work on DigComp stops here. And that's something that the community of practice is going to follow up on. Yeah, it's going to change, it's going to emerge. New updates are coming down the line, but for now, what we're planning to do is having an event series of short webinars on the specific topics of the updates throughout the year, where we're going to present in more detail, as there has been done today here, of the different updated topics, what they change, what they bring to the table, and possibly also what can be looked forward to in the future for them. Yeah, from that, then also following up, what are other areas that are missing? Where are the gaps? So the work on the community of practice is going to continue, and we invite you to join. We are also trying to improve that regarding the request for a wiki tool that has been set, and how far that's possible with the current platform, I'm not sure, but we'll work with the community of practice to together to see how we can make that available and potentially possible. But for now, the plan for this year is the webinar series on the topics of the updates. Probably group them 2 by 2 so that we have an efficient way of going through the events. And I'm looking forward to be talking to you and to discussions, and keep the questions coming.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. And finally, thank you very much, Riina, and thank you very much, Anna, for your presentations, and thank you very much, Stefano, for supporting us in raising and answering the questions. So thank you all. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. As Norman said, we'll follow up with specific webinars on specific topics. And now the final words is to my colleagues, Victoria Sanz, will have a request from you.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, please, my request is those who would like to be in the group picture, please turn on your camera so we can take a screenshot of this very successful event. And thank you very much for having stayed with us. It's really, really good to see you. All right. All right. So we will have to take a few screenshots since we are quite a few. So please, big smiles, 1, 2, 3. Hang on 1 second. We need one more. And all right, big smile. 1, 2, 3. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peter, did Peter already? Yes, Peter.
Yes, Peter, I think he's left.
Okay.
Do you want me to bring him back?
No.